Welcome back. Wow, this has been a fabulous and long 3 days. For those of you who have the drinking game going of having a shot every time we talk about rethinking, I've lost count today, and we're going to keep doing that. I'm not sure about the shots or the rethinking, but we're going to be continuing to talk about rethinking really in bigger and bigger pictures as the day goes on. We have 2 more great sessions left. This one, for those of you who are attempting to keep track of the schedule as it breezes by every half hour now, this is session 28, Rethinking Organizing, New Ways of Organizing Between and Within Music Industries. And I would like to kick us off, introduce to you Bryce Merrill, Music Program Director for the Bohemian Foundation. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Gigi. Thanks, everybody at Amplify. Conference has been great so far. I didn't know there was a drinking game. I'm missing out. I love those. We'll have to come up with one for this panel, and it's probably going to be something around swearing. So every time we swear, you drink. Okay, that's the game. So we're going to get started. Again, I'm the Music Programs Director at Bohemian Foundation, a private family foundation in Fort Collins, Colorado, although it looks like I'm in Portland right now. We're going to do some quick intros and then go around the horn and talk about organizing between and within music industries. So I'm going to start off with Serona. If you could introduce yourself and we'll go around the horn.
Sure. Hi. So I'm Serona Elton. I actually wear a couple of hats. I am a professor at the University of Miami Frost School of Music Industry, and I'm also the head of educational partnerships for the new Mechanical Licensing Collective, the MLC for short, in the United States.
Great. How about Jeremy?
So my name is Jeremy Peters. I'm the assistant professor of music business and entrepreneurship at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. I study music making, creativity, entrepreneurship, and organizing, and working on projects here in Detroit, some national ones, and actually doing some studies on how music industries are internationally organizing themselves as well. I also co-own a record label.
Awesome. Your record label is?
Quite Scientific Records. Probably should have mentioned that.
It's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, you should mention. And how about Lutz?
Hey, everyone. My name is Lutz. I'm based in Berlin. I'm co-founder of a purpose-driven consultancy that is doing research and advocacy in nighttime. It's called VibeLab. And I'm also spokesperson of an organization that's called Club Commission. It's like an advocacy group representing 300 clubs and promoters of Berlin. And in the recent month, during COVID crisis, I started 2 major projects. One was the Global Nighttime Recovery Plan, where more than 120 people participating all over the world, and a streaming project was called United We Stream that brought more than 2,500 artists on a virtual stage. And we also created communities, digital communities all over the world.
Great, thanks. And my bud Shain. Shain, what's up, man?
Hey, Bryce. Hi, everybody. My name is Shain Shapiro. I'm based in London. I run a company called Sound Diplomacy. We work with cities and governments all over the world on music strategy and policy. We run events called Music Cities Events all over the world, and I've just started an NGO called the Center for Music Ecosystems, which is working on kind of large-scale research projects around music ecosystems with the United Nations and a few other intergovernmental agencies.
Great, thanks everybody. So we're going to talk about organizations and organizing in the music industry. Let's start with organizations. I'm interested in hearing if there are any specific organizations you're working with that are just doing the most interesting, innovative, cutting edge work right now. Anybody want to chime in? I will call on somebody if I have to.
Well, where we can shout out to like very cool things that are happening.
Yeah, man, of course.
Yeah.
I think there's some great work like in the U.S. I'll talk about what's happening in Northwest Arkansas with the Arts Council there. It's called CASH. I don't know what that stands for. Central Arkansas Creative Hub with me.
Creative Arkansas Community Hub and Exchange. If I got that wrong, I'd be in trouble.
But I think they're doing incredible work kind of bringing the creative industries together around investing really at the grassroots level in developing content and developing, all sorts of different initiatives in Northwest Arkansas, which, historically is not known as much as the Austins and the Nashvilles, but there's as much going on there per capita than there is in any other place that I've seen.
That's great. Who else?
And it's been interesting, really, for me to see how the shifts in the sort of force of all of us having to be stuck in front of screens has sort of leveled the playing field in some ways for some organizations. Like a brand new organization like NVIA, or relatively brand new, was able to sort of get this groundswell of support and actually get policy change inserted into the most recent COVID support bill with the National Venue Operators Grant. That's a massive bit of sort of cultural change that's happened in the States. That kind of support for arts, given it's in the context of COVID, was kind of interesting to see. And I'm really interested to see how these sort of things keep continuing on.
Yeah, I think I have to shout out to more than 64 night mayors and advocates all over the world. It's a growing movement. When we started off 20 years ago, there was only one, and now it's in New York, it's in Paris, it's in Orlando, in Washington D.C., in Detroit. You have all in these cities. You have people who step up, negotiate, help programs, try to step in if there's like a misunderstanding between creative communities and governments, and it's an amazing work that a lot of people are doing during this crisis and make cities definitely more resilient.
Yeah, Adriel's been doing amazing work in Detroit, I know.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, the scope and scale and variety of the work, you're talking about work happening in the heartland of the US, 64 night mayors all around, the NEVA Save Our Stages grant. That's arguably the biggest piece of federal cultural policy in the US ever. I mean, the momentum is substantial. It's a fascinating time. How about you, Serona? Anything on your radar?
The thing that's on my radar now is just getting started, really. And it's not necessarily an organization so much as an expansion of what they do. So many people have heard of Wipo, right? The International Property, Intellectual Property is Friday, and I did not play the drinking game yet. So they actually have a new initiative called Wipo for Creators, and a whole creator platform that's just in its launching stages now. That's going to provide a whole set of resources, educational resources across the spectrum in terms of not just music, but different forms of creative arts. Really trying to help educate a whole category of creators who maybe historically were not close to the economic or commercialization process for their art, and now are a lot closer to it. So keep an eye out for developments in that area. It's early days yet, but I'm really excited about it.
That's great. That's fantastic. So this panel we're chatting in the green room about one of my next prompts, which is, are there any organizations out there that maybe should go away, that maybe shouldn't be around? And it was kind of a dare to see if anybody would name an organization explicitly. Now's the time, friends. Does anybody want to call out an organization that should go away, or just talk more broadly about perhaps organizations, organizational types, or modes of organizing that may be fading out?
I can talk about it broadly. Maybe that's a weak move, but I'm not sure how useful these kind of siloed, very specific organizations will be in the future. What I'm seeing broadly is that when groups are coming together to kind of come to some sort of agreement, may not be perfect, this is really where transformative change is happening. For example, it's before the context of COVID, but the music industry, for the large part, came together and agreed on the main tenets of, at least in the United States, the Music Modernization Act. That was a massive sort of update that was due. A lot of people would agree with that, and we sort of came together to make that happen. In the UK, the similar things for support for the creative community and some of the work that's actually been done to take a look at streaming and so on and so forth, that has sort of been this push through and this agreement between a lot of different parties, and these specific entities might not be so useful going in the future. I don't know.
I think, yeah. Sorry, Bryce.
No, go ahead.
I think they're not in the US, but I think in some countries, some collection societies need to either be reformed or go away. A lot of collection societies were created, the same way mafias are created in some countries. Being honest, we set up a new collection society. Well, not we, me. I'm part of it, called Unison in Spain, in response to what we think was a completely inequitable anti-artist system that was being run in Spain by the existing collection society there, Sky. I am not their biggest fan, but they have improved significantly since then because we keep taking them to court and winning. But when you look at the developing world and when you look at how where you live and what you look like should not affect your ability to pursue music as a career. But unfortunately, we have there are a lot of countries where these copyright agencies are just not artist focused. And I feel like there's an incredible opportunity now, although it may upset some people, to rethink what collection societies mean for creators in these new music markets, where artists deserve the same level of support that they get from collection societies in the US.
I mean, you did just call them the mafia, Shain. So
we
got that on record now.
If you get a horse head in your bed.
I didn't call anyone the mafia, but there are some countries where these organizations are operated in very similar ways, and sorry.
At least we know who it is if it's happening. So we take revenge. I think when we started to negotiate emergency aid programs in Germany, there were a lot of organizations popping up that had obviously a mailbox and representing somebody, and came out with numbers, like huge numbers and everything. And we as Club Commission, we were able to survey in a week all of our members. I think 85% answered that survey. We had like very specific numbers of how the liquidity is, how long they can actually survive without any government help. And I think so. I would say all the organizations that are just representing but not really serving their community and not really having communication or access to their own stakeholders, I think we can get rid of them.
That's great. Serona?
I don't have any additional ones to add. I don't.
I think that if you look at what's happened in the past year in terms of what NIVA has done, if you can think of it as arts advocacy, which I argue that it is, you really have to take a hard look at arts advocacy in the US and the organizations that are primarily responsible for that and ask whether or not they have been effective, whether or not they truly represent the arts in the US, particularly the art that's sort of embraced by, created by most people, which is popular music. And I think we have to look at any organization performing that role and ask, are you truly effective, especially in light of what was accomplished by NIVA under extraordinary circumstances. So that's my version of.
I'm the only one that actually answered your question.
Well, you said you weren't going to actually name a name, so you got out of it too, pal.
I think Bryce almost just named a name, but I mean, it's interesting. I think there's this like larger definition of what creative work is and what the music industry might be, what the arts are in the United States, at least specifically. And I see it being adopted in other countries where they get this bigger idea that it's not just museums, it's not just nonprofits. But when you look at the economics of it, we put all this money into the economy, and we need to be able to talk about that wider definition, and figuring out how to organize and to get the conversation between both of these, both the nonprofit and for-profit sides of the arts, both the in museum and out of museum, however you want to define it. That's when real change will happen, because Washington or policymakers in capitals will see, oh, everybody's talking about this now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I would even push a step further that the notion, it's not a type of organization, or it's not a specific organization, but 501c3s as like the sole vehicle, or 501c6s that we use to advance the arts as a public good, it is such a boring and broken model. And one of the, I think, quick and easy cultural policy wins we could get in this country would be to sort of address funding for individuals rather than all funding having to go to nonprofit organizations. And that's when we look at what's happening in the US and then in other parts of the world, it's always so hard to do a comparison because we have this gigantic nonprofit industrial complex that has to center all of the work. So I could use a little less nonprofits.
Yeah, I get it. I'm on both sides. I'm president of a nonprofit board, but I also run a for-profit arts company, and it's like, it's just a legal structure but
that's all
we're
it is.
doing the exact same thing.
That's all it is. It's just a tax structure. Let's switch a little bit away from organizations to organizing, the sort of the actual acts, whether it's social movement and political style, or it's simply coming together. What sorts of things are you seeing in organizing that is interesting to you and you want to call out?
I feel like there's so much sharing and storytelling going on, and it's a really, really good thing for somebody who's learning to trying to get more information about being in the music industry, or trying to sort of level up, if you will, on their information. It's almost like drinking from a fire hose. Maybe a bad example, but there's just so much information out there. I wonder how well we're doing at making sure that will stay going forward. I just don't want it to switch back to where it is, but I get that there's importance to being in person for these kinds of meetings. The fact that we're from all over the US and internationally in a bunch of different time zones in this chat is awesome. And, I've participated in 2 panels yesterday, those kind of things should stay. But I'm wondering what the after effects might be.
I would like to talk a bit about Unite We Stream, because we saw so much positive coming out of a streaming service. Everybody talks about a negative. There is no, the finance model is not there yet, and all these kind of things. And of course, it's not club culture. You cannot replicate a sweaty dance floor. But what we see is that it's really used by advocates all over the world. So we have it now in 118 cities, Unite We Stream. And we have now the results, how that really helps local groups to be visible, to also show them as united, which was always a problem, in the music scene, to get everybody together. But virtually you get them on a platform. And Tbilisi in Georgia is a good example. There is, we all know about these revolutions and the techno scene that really protested for many years. And now the first time they actually received fundings, grants from the city. And they sent us a letter that is only solely based on the work that we did with the streaming, because they now had visibility. They were able to also use national heritage and really centered places, because they never could do a party there, obviously, but they could set up a streaming, and it's visible. It shows we are part of the society. We're here, and we are also suffering, and that is something that I could really see as a very positive movement.
That's great. Shain, what about you?
I'm super impressed with, from an organizing perspective, what Lutz and his team have done in relation to the Global Nighttime Recovery Plan. I know that Fitch was on the call as well. There's a lot of people who have done a lot of work to create some incredible guidance and advice. And so shout out to you, Lutz, and Mirek, obviously, who's not here. From
Thanks for your help.
Yeah, from an organizing perspective, I think I could talk for hours about how fantastic, NEVA is and what they have done in terms of organizing. If you think about thousands of venue owners from across the country, each with different issues, coming together for a singular purpose or a couple singular purposes, and then getting and then the shuttered venues support coming through in the second Trump stimulus package is fantastic. Or it's, internationally, we're seeing a lot of work at the European Commission level too that's really commendable. So for those who aren't familiar, the European Commission has a program called Music Moves Europe, which was part of a cultural program for the last few years. Just this year, it's been carved out as its own specific program, which is a big deal, that music is its own thing rather than underneath other things. And there's hundreds and hundreds of organizations that have worked to make that happen. But what that means is, and I'm excited about this, and Horizon 2022, which is the big European funding program to fund academic research. It's like the NEA on steroids. One of the topics that they're bringing to the fore this in 2022 is music ecosystems. And I certainly yelled as much as I could at whatever wall would listen to me over all these years. But the fact that that there's this research grant for music ecosystems where 3 or 4 universities have to apply. You have to have this whole massive application process involving millions of euros, shows the seriousness that the European Commission has towards music, which is really, really commendable. So I'm incredibly optimistic. A lot of good things are happening in relation to organizing, both on the music side and the nighttime economy side, and together.
That's great. Thanks. And Trump was your swear word, so drink if you're following along.
Sorry, I watch Colbert and he doesn't use this word, but he's got like all the different. I don't know if anyone else watches Colbert. There's so many different synonyms for his name.
You might be the only person to qualify that spending package as Trump's spending package, but that's okay. Somebody needed a drink then. Serona, anything to add, or do you want to? I have something else, but do you want to chime in?
I'll try to be really quick because I know time is short. And I just really think we have crossed such a major, it's a huge paradigm shift in bringing together people that are not geographically located near each other in terms of how people are educated, how people can organize together for a cause. Having Zoom meetings, as much as everyone's fatigued by them, it to me is a huge game changer in bringing together like-minded people in ways that just was not possible before, when you were talking about everybody traveling or getting on phone calls or even just posting on Facebook. It's not the same. So that excites me.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm curious to see how this momentum goes after.
We're also seeing, just so many more kind of non-music entities engage with music. So as you said, we've had some great engagement with the United Nations, which I don't think would have happened without the industry coming together in a way where what it wanted to communicate was clearer to the outside world. So I think that's really, really, really exciting as well.
Yeah,
and I didn't mean it was his stimulus package. I'm sorry, it's late here. I'm getting in trouble. It's the second time I've gotten in trouble on this panel.
I know you're calling in from Boris's London, so it's fine, man.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like
Yeah.
we're
That's
doing.
a swear word.
Jens, we're running out of time. Focus.
I was just say, I feel like we're doing better at storytelling. Maybe, and we were able to just kind of the general comment, but we were able to tap into a sort of more maybe emotional content, or the story was more coherent. Whatever it may be, this sort of move forward. Seems like that story that we're telling is hitting policymakers' ears. It's tapping into a national nerve a little bit more, and I think that's maybe why we're seeing some more success there.
Yeah, I think music has always been used to advance other causes and movements. And what happened was we saw music as a means of advancing our own cause. I will say that what I haven't seen enough of is the organizing of musicians, or musicians being as formatively involved in organizing as I would hope, given that many of these policies directly impact them. And I have seen some models of unions developing, but I'm really hoping our sort of smart DIY entrepreneurial musicians out there are thinking about how they can organize. Because if you talk about a political constituency, musicians, if we could connect to each other and have a shared goal, we would be formative. We're about to wrap up. So are there any collaborations or connections that you're hoping to see, that you're like, we really need this? This is a bit of a pie in the sky moment that we can go out on.
I can go first. So riffing off what you just said, Bryce, I would love to see the creatives and musicians and performers hopefully self-organize a little bit more, just like organic or fair trade coffee producers and food producers have before. There's this sort of nascent fair trade music thing going on, and it would be cool to see that adopted more throughout the industry.
Great. Let's go around the horn. Lutz?
I would agree to that, and I think the Global Net Recovery Plan showed also the work that we also have to look in the global South. We tried very hard to reach out to a lot of people, but we also saw that a lot of them are not able to do voluntary work, because they have to survive, and we have to find models how to, collaborate with the global South more and find ways how also to stimulate them. Great.
Quickly, Serona?
I'd like to see more organizations come together to focus on educational initiatives.
Yes.
I can say through my work at the MLC, we'll have a session about mechanical licensing and get a ton of questions about other parts of the industry, because people are so hungry for well, tell me about these other things too. And, I would love to see more collaborative efforts of respected organizations, so people know they're getting reliable information, coming together with more educational offerings for musicians and songwriters.
Great. Love it. Shain, you got the wrap up.
I'm hoping for greater engagement with music and kind of the wider sustainable development conversation at an international and intergovernmental level. I think there's an incredible opportunity to invest in music through how governments invest in sustainable development, and now I'm distracted by Storm joining us. But
for your report you did with the Center for Music.
So yes, we and for those who are interested, we wrote a report. The Center for Music Ecosystems wrote a report in concert with 10 UN agencies, Center for Music Ecosystems /SDGs, and it's about music and the SDGs. I think a lot of governments, this is how they spend money, especially in the global South. And so this is an incredible opportunity to kind of make 1 + 1 = 3.
Absolutely. Great way to wrap it up, Shain. Appreciate you, Bryce, for moderating this. And what a great panel. There's so many points at which I said, I'll drink to that. We're going to move on to our next panel, which will show up in a couple of minutes. We'll see you there. And we're off. All right.